Hello, and welcome to Postcards from a Soul and Her Human. I'm the human Sophia. Welcome to everybody who is here with me today. I appreciate your presence as always. This has been an extraordinary time for me in my life, and I'm sharing as much as I can as it's happening. And this is sometimes a little challenging, as the energies can still be very powerful. And today is not an exception to that. I've had an experience yesterday that caused I guess I'm going to refer to it as a unblockage of something that was trying to emerge, that until yesterday was unable to, because of extenuating circumstances, which uh, is remarkable. And this is not the easiest thing to articulate, so please forgive me as I attempt this. I have been going through a process of changing my name, and I talked about this a couple times already. I had an inspiration that came after a tarot reading that I viewed, that suggested that I may want to adopt a spiritual name. And as I said, it didn't really resonate at first, but later, as the day went on, I started to feel this idea grow in my body. And this is often how this happens. And I think I want to talk about this process a little bit too, because I think it's so important for people to understand, especially those who may be going through some sort of transformation that they maybe are not aware of, or maybe they're having inclinations that they can't pin down. And I think for me, as a novice to everything that's happened to me, it's important that I describe these as best I can. And maybe this will help someone who is experiencing an emergence of a new version of themselves. I think that's probably the best way to put this is a new version of me that is emerging out of the old one. And I've been told over and over in the last several months that I'm moving into a new timeline. And I have had many things happen in my life that have signified this. And I talked about them in the last episode, where I was not so subtly nudged to get my house ready for when I move, because I'm due to be relocated. During that time, I had this, I would call it almost nearly an irresistible urge to purge my house, which I have done over the last couple of weeks. I moved two big loads out of my house, my closets, and everything that was non-essential in my house. I moved out and brought to a donation center. And if you haven't done it recently, even if you're not moving, it is the most liberating feeling to let go of stuff. And, you know, I heard a saying a long, long time ago that's always stuck with me, that said, what you own owns you. And if you think about that, and also I worked as an estate liquidator for 12 years. So I cleaned out other people's homes when they either passed away or moved away. And the stuff that we keep is really a symbol of how we feel in our bodies. When we're trying to fill a void inside of us with stuff, and it ends up as accumulation of in our home, in our first it goes in our closets, and then in the spare room, and then before you know it, you're walking around it in your primary living spaces. And I think this is something that uh people don't realize as it's happening, is when you start to collect stuff, you're filling a void in your body that cannot be filled with material things. It's something that has to be filled by you, by your intention to heal your body, your energetic body, which is trauma or pain or fear, and all the things that inhibit us in our lives. So, you know, I worked for 12 years in a business where I literally cleaned out people's emotional debris in its physical form. And it's disheartening and heartbreaking when you realize someone has gone so far into their uh, discomfort, that the attempt to relieve it, or to solve it or resolve it, is done in such an outward and debilitating way when you start to cover your body and your home in stuff. And so this is one of the reasons why I live a fairly minimal lifestyle. There's nothing that I need that I don't have. And it's sometimes tempting to get stuff because it's cool or there's gadgets. And, I mentioned that I have the same cell phone that I've had for almost 8 years now. It's just, it still works fine. And I'm finally at the stage in my life where I don't need to replace it just because it's not new anymore. And there's a lot of liberation around that, getting rid of things. So I did a couple of big purges out of my house over the last couple weeks, and the repairs that are needed on the house are scheduled. So I asked the house, I said, "Is there anything else that you need? Let me know." And little things have been popping up for me to attend to, and I've been doing that. So during this time, I've had a lot of inspiration or not so subtle nudges to get ready for this relocation, because this relocation is necessary for me at this stage in my in this incarnation. And I want to say life and lifetime; those things are great, but my language has changed so much. It's difficult to talk about myself as just a human being anymore, because I'm so aware of my energetic self, of the soul self, and why she's here and what she is doing as she's orchestrating the next phase of my life. And so I'm sitting in this space between worlds, or as it's described to me, as a space between the end and the beginning. And I've never felt such a line of demarcation between the two before I started the process of changing my name. And uh, it's so funny when I think about taking a step and a light going on, and taking another step and another light goes on. This is how I think about my life now, is my path is illuminated when I take a step. But until I take that step, I don't know what the next step is. So you take that next step in absolute faith that where you're going will be illuminated for you. And this is, I think, another really important thing to understand about the process of transformation, about the process of transmuting your old self, and your old life and your old wiring and everything that you used to think and feel and believe. It all falls away as you learn, and this is an intuitive learning. And I think this is really important for people to understand, that this learning is not knowledge. It's not something that you can learn in a book, or you can listen to somebody speak and suddenly know. This is an embodiment of knowing. And for me, it comes in the form of downloads. And a download is simply an intuitive rush of information. And this generally happens while I sleep. And when I wake up in the morning, I have an idea that I didn't have the day before. And that idea will turn into whatever it's meant to turn into. And for me, there's all the articles that I've written, and every episode that I do is usually based on some sort of download or an inspiration, or however you want to refer to it. We all have them. But many, many times, instead of trusting an urge, which is again that next step in the dark, you don't know where you're going until you take the step. You have to have faith that you're being guided. So getting all the debris out of the way, cleaning out the closets and sending it off to donation, or integrating it or transmuting it, which is what we need to do as energetic beings. We take the pain and the trauma and we look it directly in the eye. And this is what I refer to as our demons and our dragons. And they're not evil at all. They are our darkness, which is meant to illuminate us, because without the contrast, there's no light. So it's such an interesting and simple concept, but it's the most difficult thing to embody. And I think that is really the most important part of this for me, is the embodiment. Until you embody something, it's just information. It doesn't make any difference in your life. You can't apply it in a practical way. And I think that's something else I wanted to really accentuate, because this is not something I'm doing with my brain. My mind is assisting with the strategic movement in the world, the material world, but it's not coming from my brain. This is intuitive knowing that is infusing my body from a higher source. And this higher source is generally me, in my highest version or my higher self. And of course, there are other beings. I have my soul tribe, who I talk about often, and there are other intelligent beings who have an interest in this lifetime and what I'm doing here, and they are also assisting in the same way. So, and I'm learning more about this too, which I might get to. We'll see, but so removing the debris out of my house is, really a symbol for or symbolic of removing emotional debris in your body, because your home, your interior reflects your interior. So if you have congested rooms or unfinished rooms, or you don't feel at home in your own space, and I can tell you from experience, even in the home that I've lived in for almost 25 years now, actually 25 years now, the one I'm sitting in right now, I haven't felt at home here until very recently, until honestly after my marriage ended and I was able to be here on my own, where I could discover who I was. And as I did that, the interior of my house changed. I started getting rid of things, and I decorated a little differently, and it now reflects me more than it ever has. And I feel at home here, even though my home is in an environment that I no longer belong in. Like, for example, the photo of the tree behind me, I have a very strong draw to trees. I've talked about this a little bit before. That's a photo that was taken in Crater Lake in California of a thistlecone pine, and it just spoke to me. It is, and of course, the Milky Way galaxy, which is our galaxy, where our solar system resides, is evident, is visible above it as that blue streak. And this photo really embodies who I have become, or who I remembered that I am. I am a being from the cosmos. I am not naturally a human being. And the trees are family members. I feel like I'm a tree, and I've been described as a tree in this lifetime because of the way I transmute negative energy, which is like a tree. There's so much more there, but I won't go into it now. But so that my point is my home now reflects the embodiment that I have of my true self. It is a place I feel at home. There's no clutter. There is only things that have value to me sentimentally, or they serve a purpose. It's really nothing else. And when I was able to get to that stage and realize that my home was a reflection of my embodiment, I'm able to actually relax here. My nervous system relaxes here. I refer to my solitude as a luxury. And until that changes, and when that changes, it'll be when I am in a new relationship potentially, or I'm doing something else. I don't know exactly how, or when I move, of course. I feel at home here. So when I am alone, I can truly relax. And in that relaxation, I am blessed with realizations, epiphanies, revolutionary ideas. This is kind of what I wanted to talk about, and I'm not really sure how, but this is a good segue into it. Is I was working on changing my name, which I said originally, and I went through all of the legal process, and then I went through the process of changing my name on nearly 50 accounts. Everything where my name existed, I had to change it. And what I didn't realize that would happen, which was really another ignition for me, was once I received the notice from the court system that my name was legally changed, it also included a letter that said that they would automatically send this new information to the Department of Vital Statistics, which is where the birth certificates come from. And it said you can just call there and you can get a free updated birth certificate. And I had changed my name twice before. I was married twice, so I changed my name twice. And neither time was I required a new birth certificate. But what I didn't know until now was when you change your entire name, first and last, you need a new birth certificate. And this was such an interesting thing for me because I thought, well, what happens to the first one? So it basically voids out your original birth certificate. And I did not realize until I saw that information how that would impact me later. So here we are a couple of months later, nearly 3 months after I've changed everything. And I just was sitting alone and I realized that I couldn't get my birth certificate at the Department of Vital Statistics in the state that I live in because I wasn't born in this state. So I researched it real quickly and it said you have to just contact the state you were born and request it there. So I right away I did that. And I called the department just to make sure I had the right form. And the young lady was very nice. And she said, you don't have to send your original birth certificate, which the instructions online said you did. I said, well, what do I do with it? She said, well, you just destroy it. It's voided. And until that moment, I didn't really understand what that meant. But what that meant was I was erasing the existence or the birth of who I used to be. And this didn't really come full circle for me until yesterday. First of all, I went in to pay my bills online and I noticed that the check that I mailed to the Department of Vital Statistics in the state that I was born had cleared. So it was in my mind that my new birth certificate was on its way. And this new birth certificate is going to have my new name on it, Sophia Maya. It's not going to have my old name on it at all. It's going to appear that I was born as Sophia Maya. So that is in my mind, and it's the weekend, and I usually on the weekends I work on something. Sundays I usually record. Today's Sunday, so I'm doing an episode. Yesterday was Saturday. I was working on another episode that I had done with my collaborator Igor Siberia, which is another series of another podcast series that I'm producing with him. I was working on our last episode, and I just had an idea that I would and again, you don't know where the inspiration comes from. And this is the important part. I think that why I wanted to talk about this, even though I wasn't sure how I was going to describe it, is an inspiration can sometimes be just a whisper. And you don't really have much more than that to go on. And until you take that step in the dark, and again, the next step then illuminates, you don't know where you're going. And you just sit paralyzed, not knowing what to do. But so this whisper of inspiration came for me to update my photos on my website and on the various platforms where I am represented. My photo is there. And this was such an interesting thing. And this is, again, I'll just do my best to describe how this happened. So yesterday, Saturday, I was sitting and drinking my tea and I thought, well, before I go work on the episode, I think I'm going to try to take some pictures. And I just do this on my own. I had pictures done a couple of years ago, which was lovely. My niece did them for me. But I didn't feel the need to do that. I just wanted a new picture. I wanted something that was recent or, current. So I got my camera, I got my ring light, and I mounted the camera on it. And I just went around my home and I took some pictures. And I had an idea. This was kind of a vision that I had a few weeks ago when I started thinking about, well, I changed my name on all of these accounts. I updated just so much work in changing your name. I thought about new pictures, but it really wasn't anything on the forefront of my mind until yesterday. So I just, in a moment of inspiration, I got my camera and I started taking some photos, and I had an idea, and again, it was a vision I had a few weeks ago. I just played it out. I went to the area of my house that I thought would be neat, and I took some pictures, and I ended up with 140 pictures. And if you're like me, you don't like any photos of yourself. I don't like any of the photos. And as you get older, it's, you have to really learn to appreciate your age. It's not something that you can cover up with makeup or you can really alter too much. And I think, what's another thing that I've gone through during this transformation is letting go of that ideal of the adorned face. And, I used to wear makeup, but not very much. But now I don't wear makeup at all. I have a little bit of powder on my face just so I don't have a red nose, but I don't wear makeup anymore. And I've been struggling with, well, I should put makeup on to take pictures and I should look my best. And I really had to understand that throughout this transformative phase, and especially the one where I changed my name, that this was all part of a past me. This is a past version of myself. And when I looked online on my website and the other platforms of the pictures that I posted a couple of years ago, I don't resonate with her anymore. And I didn't really understand why until I found the photo. after I took all the photos, I went up into my editor and I went through quickly all of them, and I found 4 that were okay. Again, I don't really care for pictures of myself. I think that's probably a universal thing with women anyway. So anyway, I found one and I cropped it a little bit and I filed it and I went back to the others and I deleted 99% of them. And I went back to the one picture and I looked at it and I just said, my heart just opened and I said, that's Sophia. That's her. And it was the first time there was a line of demarcation between the old version of myself, who is Gina, and the new version of myself, who is Sophia. And I was told in a recent reading, this is probably about a month ago, and I believe I spoke about it. I definitely wrote about it in my book, that I would not recognize myself in this new timeline. And I once I looked at the photo, I knew what it meant because I don't know. This is going to sound so weird. I still have to process, I'm still processing this. When I looked at the photo of myself that I took yesterday, that the one I posted on my website yesterday as well. And when I looked at the photo, I said, that's Sophia. That is her. She is free of pretense. She is free of the need to adorn herself with makeup. She is free to wear the same sweatshirt that I'm wearing today that I wore in the picture yesterday. She is free of all of the expectations that she mostly put on herself as Gina. So she's makeup free. She is sitting in a place in her home that means something to her. Actually, if you look behind me, you can see a cathedral amethyst on the floor to my right. That would be your left. And I sat down next to that beautiful crystal, which is very meaningful to me. And I took a picture there. And that is where Sophia emerged for the first time. And the reason why I don't think of myself as Sophia yet, and why I see her in the photo only, is the way I describe this is she is on a higher timeline. She is in a future version of me. She is a future version of me. She exists on a higher timeline, or I'm sorry, another timeline in a higher frequency. So a very interesting thing happened as I turned on the TV last night, as I was thinking about all these things, and I was still in awe of how I felt when I looked at that picture, is the screen on my TV started to flicker, like violently flicker. I'm like, whoa, this is like a strobe light. What's going on? And then it stopped. I was able to open the app. And then it flickered again for a few seconds and then it stopped. And what that allowed me to understand as I thought about it later, when this is how everything works, this is called serendipity. These are synchronistic events or synchronicities, depending on what it is, synchronistic events that help me to come to terms with or to process something with my brain. So by seeing the flickering of my TV screen, it allowed me to remember that the image of a higher frequency being that I saw in a movie called Epic, a cartoon or animated movie, when they showed a being from another dimension, from our human 3D perspective, the being seemed to flicker in and out of visibility. So this is my symbol for, or how I relate to seeing an other frequency or higher frequency being. So when I look at that picture of myself sitting next to my cathedral amethyst on the floor with no makeup, she flickers in and out of my mind's eye because she doesn't exist here yet. I am still in the old timeline. And this is something that is kind of a mind F, if I can use a weird term. It's a mind F. I won't say the word because then I'll have to call this explicit, because I am still sitting physically in the old timeline. My body, my physical body, is still living in my physical home, which is physically located in the old timeline or the 3D matrix. And when I move into my new timeline, which is going to be, I believe, New Zealand, an island in the middle of nowhere as it's described, with more sheep than people, where I am told that I will finally feel at home in my environment because my body will be vibrating at a similar frequency as the land and the air and the water and the food and the people that are there. And this is why relocation has become a crucial part of my mission or my lifetime here, because the way or the rate that my body is vibrating, and this is, again, everything is about frequency. The rate that my body is now vibrating is not sustainable here in this location where I am. And this is why my home has become a bubble. It is like a self-contained frequency where when I walk into the door and I am able to transmute the negative energy from the outside world, and I do that by being outdoors, I describe that as well. I also do that by sleeping alone. I will likely never sleep with a partner again, because as I sleep, I release negative energy that I collect from other people and other living things, uh, people or things. And when I say things, I mean living things, plants and animals, rocks, the dirt. I transmute that energy. So, as a receiver of negative energy, I am also a transmuter, or I recycle it back into the universe. So, in order for me to do that and remain a well person, I need to be outdoors every day. Because as a tree does, I transmute negative energy from the roots of my body, which is my root chakra, up through my crown chakra and out into space. So that's why I am described as a tree, a living tree in this incarnation. And that's why trees, although I had no idea when I started collecting tree images that that was why, that's why trees are such an embodiment of who I am, and why images of trees in my home have just popped up over the last few years. So I have to shed that negative energy, and in my home is like a safe space. But if you think of my home as a bubble, it is in an atmosphere that is inhospitable or unsustainable, uh, for the frequency that my body now vibrates. So if you take air and put it underwater, it can't breathe. So if you think about a body, I'm a self-contained body. I need air to breathe. If you put me underwater, I can only last so long as I can hold my breath, because the water is such a denser frequency, it cannot sustain the breath or the air that's needed for this body to live. So it's a vessel for this energetic being to live in this gravity-based, air-infused body or lifetime. So if you kind of look at it that way, and I know that's maybe not the smoothest, example, but the frequency that my body now vibrates is not sustainable here. I have to move to an area of the world where the vibration matches, or is at least more similar to, the vibration in my body. And that's why I have to move. So that is why I have reduced my life down to living literally on a pinhead. I don't go out anymore. I haven't eaten in a restaurant in 6 months. I don't have hobbies. I don't go to the movies anymore. I used to love to go to the movie theater by myself. I don't visit people anymore. I don't go anywhere except for to my daughter's house and to my errands. That's it. And time outdoors, which I do as much as I can. My life has just gotten so tiny here, and this is also reflected in my diet. The food that I eat, I have limited to very few vegetables and grains, because I guess I can say why, but I don't really know completely. This is where my soul has guided me to do. I didn't make any conscious decisions to stop eating meat, or to stop eating out, or to stop eating frozen food or canned food. This all just happened as this transformation has progressed. This metamorphosis of my 3D physical existence into this higher dimensional, higher vibrating, or higher frequency being that I have become. It has changed every single aspect of my life. As I mentioned before, it has changed the color of my eyes. My eyes used to be deep, liquidy brown. They were gorgeous. And my daughter laughs at me when I say, like Kim Kardashian's eyes. I mean, I don't look like her, obviously, but her eye color, that really deep, liquidy brown, that's what color my eyes used to be. And from a distance, my eyes still appear brown. But when you walk up and look in my eyes, they are not brown anymore. They are a very light, muddy green, or not a light, they're a muddy green around the edges. And in the center is a starburst of amber, and around that starburst of amber is a very pale gold. And it is extraordinary, but it happened at such a slow, gradual pace. I didn't notice it until one day I looked and I said that my eyes aren't brown anymore. And it's just an extraordinary thing to experience. My weight has changed dramatically. Everything has changed. So when I looked at that picture of myself sitting on the floor, I knew that was Sophia, but I am not yet her because I'm still in the old timeline. So I'm living between timelines, which is between the end and the beginning. I am also living between two identities, which is Gina and Sophia. And when I go to bed at night, I say my version of prayers. I just thank the universe, who I refer to as Sophia, my mother. I thank all the planetary elements, the stars. I express gratitude for this lifetime and all that is supporting me, which is everything. Every breath that I take is an elemental spirit giving me breath. Every drink of water is an elemental spirit of water giving me hydration. Every spark of fire that I use to cook my food or I'm warmed by is an elemental spirit providing it, the element of fire. And of course, Mother Earth, Gaia, and Maya, which is how I adopted my last name, is the giver of all of this bounty. She provides everything that I need. And Igor and I just did an episode that I haven't posted yet called The Nature of Living Well, about the earth and the natural doctor that she is, and she provides everything that we need. And if you're interested in the episode, it'll be posted before this one, so it'll be out there on Breath and Voice Chronicles on my YouTube channel, which is at Postcards from a Soul. You can also find it on my website and on Buzzsprout, but I'll put that information in the detail section. And by the way, this is a video if you are listening to the audio version. I have done another video. The first one went over pretty well. So I think I'm probably going to do video episodes from now on. I'm not quite sure. We'll see how I'm inspired for that. But for now, this is a video episode as well. And you can see it on YouTube at Postcards from a Soul if you're interested. So anyway, so this is such a strange and wonderful place to be in, the space between worlds and the space between identities. Sophia is a different version of me. And it wasn't until I looked at that photo yesterday that I realized that I am not yet her. That when I get this new birth certificate in the mail, yes, that will go a long way to cementing or to help me integrate this whole new identity. But until I move into this new timeline, which for me is going to be in this new location, because I'm physically being moved from my old location, which is where I currently am, into a new location. And this has been described to me many, many times for over 3.5 years now as a crucial part or a crucial element in my lifetime, or my mission here is that I'm to move to this new place. And now I'm understanding with so much more clarity why this is important to me, because honestly, I was having a little bit of trouble with it because my granddaughter was born 2 years ago. She just had her second birthday at the beginning of this month, which is February 2025. And I was told in the tarot, in the original tarot 3 years ago, that I would be needed somewhere for a couple of years. And my daughter, as soon as I retired from my business, my daughter told me that she was pregnant and she was expecting her first child, and nobody expected it, including her. It was just a wonderful thing, and she brought this baby into the world 2 years ago. And since then, I keep thinking about, well, when am I going to move? And I have to leave my babies, and this is going to be a terrible thing to have to do. And the few people who know about this, who are in my personal life, have asked me, well, how can you leave your kids? And I said, this is what I'm here to do. My children are a big part of my life, but this mission is why I'm here. And when you see your children as soulmates and they're not just identified as my human children, it's so much easier to see broadly that we have a mission here together, and we are not necessarily meant to spend every minute of it together, that we are going to have a period of time where we're going to be apart. And This has all been foretold to me that there was actually a tarot card with a picture of a woman and her two children on the shoreline. And the message was that you're going to be leaving your children behind and going across the ocean. But don't worry, it's only going to be temporary. And I don't know what that means, if that means that someday they'll move to where I'm going. I don't know what's in store for my daughter or my granddaughter. That is their journey. If my hopes and dreams are granted, they will live in this new place someday. But again, it's not my business, so I don't want to predict or even wish for that. That is their journey. So I've known about this move. I have known that I'm going to relocate. I did not understand, though, until yesterday, the message that you will not recognize yourself. I figured, oh, I'm changing my name. That's certainly a different thing, but I still recognize myself. I'm still Gina. I just changed my name. But yesterday was the first time that I saw Sophia. And she is emerging out of this old version of me, but she doesn't yet exist because I'm not in the frequency in the environment where she can be supported. If that makes any sense to you, I hope that it does. That's the best way I can describe it. So right now, she flickers in and out of my mind's eye. I have not been able to embody her yet because I'm still in the old program. And I describe this when I was writing about this as when you think of computer programs. And I think I described it this way before. When you get an upgraded computer, they wipe out the old program. They don't add to it. That's a different type of thing. When you get a new program, they wipe out the old one and they replace it with a new one. So elements of that old program cannot be brought into the new program. I think I talked about this in the last episode. It's the same thing. I cannot bring Gina with me as I can't bring old connections or relationships or things into this new timeline. I'm basically going to physically leave this physical location with one bag. I'm not taking anything. I'm not taking anything that is non-essential because I'm starting over as a brand new version of myself. And this has never been more meaningful to me than right now. Since looking at that picture, it was like I was given a glance or a glimpse at who I am to be. But I am not yet her. So when I hear the message, you are not going to recognize yourself, now I understand that I'm actually leaving this old version of me in this old timeline. And although my physical body, this frame, this molecular structure is going with me, it no longer will embody the old version of me. That as soon as I step into that new timeline with my new Social Security card and my new driver's license and my new birth certificate, that Gina will no longer exist. And this is not a negative thing. Gina is a foundational part of me. She got me here. She is a crucial elemental aspect of my being, but she is now integrated. Just as everything else I have gone through and experienced in my life, she will then be deeply and permanently integrated into this new version of me, just like every single version of me before has been. And what I mean by that is when we go through our lifetime, it's an evolution. Everything that we experience that teaches us something raises our vibration because we're having an understanding of why we're experiencing something negative. And when we come to terms with that, we are the ones that drew that negative experience into our lives. When we come to terms with that, we grow every time we realize, well, that was a lesson. Oh, I get it. When you say those words, I get it. What you do is you integrate that lesson into your body and it becomes part of your power. It raises your frequency. And the higher your vibrational frequency goes, and this is literally the rate that your body vibrates. Every time you raise that vibration, you create a new version of yourself. So I have limitless versions of myself through this lifetime and all the many, many lifetimes that I've lived. But this lifetime in particular, I imagine, has been a series of quantum leaps forward in my evolution because it was designed that way by my soul, by the higher self that guides me. And So Gina is not forgotten. She is not a part of me that I'm leaving behind in a trash bin. She is integrated now as part of this patchwork or this tapestry of this extraordinary human who is now ready to go into a new timeline. And in doing so, has created a version of herself that is still ahead that I can see from here. I mean, how extraordinary is this that I am able to see her in the future through that photograph? It is the most remarkable thing that I think I've ever spoken out loud. It is I'm This is like the old program getting to sit and watch the new program get installed and watching the avatar that the old program was turn into the new avatar. So I get to see Gina become Sophia. I get to see Sophia from her past. Talk about a mind F. So this is basically two timelines, and this is how it's been described to me. I'm living in two timelines now. The new timeline is rushing in and out of my current timeline. So I keep getting these inspirations and urges that are drawing me into this new timeline, like getting the house ready and changing my name and letting go of old connections and everything that I've ever known. This has all been that new timeline drawing my energy inward towards it. But again, my old energy, the version of myself who was Gina, cannot be carried in whole parcel into this new timeline. She has to be broken apart and taken in completely raw. Right? I mean, this is a mind F. I want to say the word so bad, but I don't want to mark this explicit because I am literally living in two timelines. And if you saw the movie Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey and oh, she's lovely. I can't remember her name. Was represented there. And I think I might have mentioned this before, so forgive me if it's repeated, but I think it bears repeating. In that movie, in outer space, they show what a multidimensional world would look like. And it looks like a big library where, depending on what shelf you go to, there is a different timeline happening, but they're all happening at the same time. And this to me was the best demonstration of what this feels like. Is that I can see that alternate timeline. I can feel it in my body, rushing in and out of my current life, drawing me into it, causing me to take all of these inspired actions to prepare for it. I have stripped my life down to nothing. My body is stripped down to nothing. I no longer wear makeup. My hair is gray. I have been stripped of every mask I've ever worn, whether I was aware of it or not. I've been stripped of every connection I've ever had. I've been stripped of everything. And when I say been stripped, I mean guided to let go of, is what I mean. I didn't let go of anything that I wanted to keep. And I know that might sound a little harsh, but I knew what was happening. I understood that I was being prepared to go into this time machine and to be transported to this new timeline. So this is still so very exciting to me. So I am moving into a new timeline, which is an alternate universe. Technically, I know it's not, I mean, physically you can get to where I'm going on Earth, but when you think of me as an energetic being or us as energetic beings, this is a new dimension for me. I'm going to a place where I never existed before, where the old version of me would have never gone. And this new version of me is waiting for me. And I finally got to see her when I looked at that picture and I knew that that was Sophia. And then I had the idea that, well, aren't I Sophia? And I knew that I wasn't. Not yet, but I'm getting there. And as soon as the call comes for me to go, and I move to this place, which I believe is New Zealand, although I don't know anything for sure. This is just what I've been guided to believe and what I know in my body. And I've also been guided to be open to whatever might happen. And I don't know what that's going to be. I'm not making predictions. I am just expressing the embodiment of what I'm going through. So I am still Gina, even though my name has changed. I'll be receiving a new birth certificate in the mail any day now that will say Sophia Maya. But until I move into that new timeline, and I explained this to my daughter about a week ago, I said, nobody here knows me as Sophia. And it's okay. I don't need them to know me as Sophia. I am not Sophia here. Sophia does not exist here. I received a message just last week. I haven't listened to many readings in the last month or so because I feel so confident about what I know and that I'm ready for this and I don't need more validation. But I was drawn to a reading, one in particular that over the last month, and the only one I listened to, that said, of course, was an aid to me getting to this point, that said that what you're creating is for another timeline, for a future timeline. And I knew instantaneously what that meant. What I'm creating in my body is a frequency. So every time I embody this being, this galactic being that I am, this ancient alien that I am, that is my soul, my frequency goes up and I lose my ability to stay in the 3D matrix. So I have essentially busted out of the 3D matrix that I've talked about before, and I'm going into this new timeline. And so my frequency is something that I'm creating for this new timeline. But also what was stated, and very particularly what you're posting online, is for a future timeline. And I don't mind saying, and I said this before, I have very few listeners. I have a handful of listeners. Some of my episodes have 0 listens. But I don't look at that. I don't need that as a motivator to keep putting out this content. I understand at a cellular level that what I'm doing is not meant for now. And now I'm being told poignantly with words that are channeled through a talented tarot reader, that everything that you've been creating, including this vibrational frequency in my body, including the content that I create, my writing and my podcasts, are for a future timeline. They're not for now. So I'm not to be disheartened when I look at my stats and they are in the single digits or 0. I don't care. I don't worry about it. I don't think about it. It's not something on my mind at all. It is an embodiment that I have had since the beginning, because I was told very early on that not many people are going to see what you're doing. As I was guided to write and then guided to start the podcast. I now have 2 podcasts. I have one with Igor. And I have very few listeners, and I don't care. It's not a concern. I do this because I'm guided and inspired to do this. It's just so exciting and interesting to tie back together information that I was given years ago that has become relevant now. And then I get reminded of it with synchronicities that happen around me that help me to remember and to tie together this picture, or to this puzzle, put together this puzzle, this tapestry of my life that is happening. Another thing that came from this, which was extraordinary, is I am 62 years old. I turned 62 in October of 2024. It is now February 9th, the day I'm recording, of 2025. And at 62, you're able to draw your Social Security. I have not yet done so. And this is something in the very beginning when I retired 2.5 years ago, nearly 3 years ago when I retired. I didn't know where money was going to come from. I was guided to use my savings, and then I was guided to start using my retirement, which I am doing right now. And I don't think about money anymore. It's not a concern. I know I'll always have what I need because I'm inspired to live this way, to be where I'm needed for a couple of years, which was, again, from the original tarot that said you're going to be needed somewhere for a couple of years. And I came to understand that as being with my daughter and my granddaughter, which is the period of time I'm in right now. My granddaughter just turned 2, which makes me think that I may be leaving soon. And I've said this many times. I don't think I'm going to be here another year, but I don't know yet that. All I know is I'm being actively prepared to go. So all of this is taking place. I am going through all of these changes, readying for this new timeline, spending these 2 years with my daughter, knowing that that's the 2 years where I'm needed. And the original tarot telling me that I'm moving across the world and that it's all part of my mission and that I'm going to leave my girls behind and that you will not recognize yourself, and that everything that you're creating, although it's not being seen at the time, it's going to be seen in a new timeline. And I've come to understand that that new timeline is physically a new location for me. And as I started to say before I digress, so forgive me, uh, what this has channeled into is more clarity about my Social Security. I was online yesterday, and this is when I was working on updating my photo and doing different things online. I worked on the episode. I finally did work on the episode with Igor yesterday, Saturday. I went to do a search on Yahoo, and this is where I get a lot of messages. I have been seeing in the, if you have Yahoo as your default browser, I see current news that goes on rotation is the first thing that I see. And sometimes I'll look at that because if there's something for me to know, it's usually going to be contained in there. And I've gotten many messages this way. And what I've been seeing lately in that scrolling news feed is posts about Social Security. And I always say, and I say this out loud since I turned 62, I don't feel drawn or inspired to pull my Social Security yet. And when I do, I will. And this is something that I really, really want to accentuate in this new energy, in this clear energy, is I know that I don't have to know anything until I know it. So what I mean is, if there's something coming up and I'm not sure what I'm going to do, I don't have to think about it, because until I am directly in front of something, I don't know how I'm going to feel. And it is how I feel that dictates what I do. It is strictly how I feel. So in this coherence with my higher self and the energetic source of you, the universe, which you can call it source energy, you can call it your higher self, you can call it the universe. Since I'm in such close connection, I have this open channel, I know that I don't have to think about it. So if there's comes a day where I have to do something different for money, I will be inspired to do that. I don't have to worry, oh, what happens when my retirement runs out? What am I going to do? How am I going to take care of myself? Am I have to live with my daughter? And then fear and anxiety take root in your body and become your default, and then you lose that connection to your inspiration. And this is the part that until I experienced it, of course, I couldn't articulate. But I don't need to know anything until I know it. So I always said to myself, when I am inspired to draw my Social Security, I will. I don't know when that's going to be. But over the last couple of months, I keep seeing posts about Social Security. And I'm like, okay, I see you. I see you. It hasn't turned into an inspiration, so I let it go. If it doesn't follow me and take seed in my body, which then starts to grow into an idea, I forget about it. It doesn't matter. It's not relevant. Not yet, anyway. So yesterday I was on the news feed, and of course it was very brief. I saw a flash of a post that said, "Draw your insecurity." Probably a Freudian slip there of some kind. Draw your Social Security as soon as possible. And it had already, because it's on a rotation, it passed already. And I'm like, So I went backwards and I looked at the post again, and it said, draw your Social Security as soon as possible. And of course, I was inspired and I clicked on the link, and it said, as long as you have a retirement that's covering your primary expenses, go ahead and draw it. It's your money. And so I thought, no, I'm not doing that. I closed the post. I went on, did what I did. And this was several hours later in the evening after I watched television. I'm sitting, I forgive me. That's not true. I went to bed that evening, and this morning when I woke up, I'm lying in bed, and I've been advised that this is my sacred space. When I lay in bed in the morning is when anything that comes through to me in a download or an inspiration, however you want to call it, it comes into or opens up or emerges into my awareness. And I'm lying there this morning thinking about what happened yesterday with my picture, and just still in awe of the whole thing about seeing myself as a different version in the future. I'm lying there just kind of just soaking it all in, integrating it all, which is basically what I'm doing, is integrating all of this new knowing in my body. It doesn't require thought. Well, I'm lying there, and I was just about thinking about getting up, and I thought about the Social Security post and I said, oh, here we go. And I knew instantaneously if it entered into my mind after the fact, hours and hours after I slept the whole night, I knew that it had was holding some importance. So I laid in bed a little bit longer and I just let it be. And I started to think about it. And what I started to realize was something truly extraordinary. Oh my gosh. This is the wisdom of my higher self guiding me, because I would not have come to this conclusion on my own. And I'm not taking credit away from myself. I'm accentuating the importance of that open channel of intuition. I don't have to know anything. When it is relevant, when the time is right, I'm given everything that I needed. That's my point. So I'm lying in bed thinking about that Social Security post, and I suddenly realized something. And this is something that I thought about a couple weeks before. And this might sound weird, and I might be even wrong, and it doesn't matter. The factual element of this doesn't matter. The fact that it came into my body as an idea or an inspiration is all that matters. It doesn't matter how it actually turns out, because the action is what's necessary, not necessarily the outcome, which is another thing you have to learn to let go of. So I was talking to my daughter. I was actually researching something a few weeks ago before I talked to my daughter about it, because I remember learning about your retirement savings, and I was thinking about New Zealand as possibly where I might be going, and how you might have to be careful when you draw in a new country, because the currency rate may reduce the value of your money. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, so what is the currency rate between where I am in the United States and New Zealand? So I did a quick research, and I am mathematically challenged. I cannot do head math, and I don't mind that at all. I have calculators everywhere. Whenever I do head math, I'm always way off, so I can't make any decisions based on head math. So I did a quick research of the currency rate between the US and New Zealand, and it said like 53%. And I'm like, oh, whoa, I'm going to lose 53% of my retirement when I move. And I'm like, oh boy. And my heart sank a little bit. I'm like, boy. I went to a calculator and I said, how much would this much money be worth in New Zealand currency? And I was completely wrong. It was worth 53% more in the new location. So I'm thinking, well, holy crap. And my mind, of course, is going on this merry-go-round ride with, well, that means that my retirement is going to be worth this much when I move there, and I'm going to have everything I need because of the currency rate. And I got all excited, and I told my daughter about it, and she blurted this out, which you have to understand how soulmates work. And this is something I love so much about my daughter, who is a soulmate. And this is how she has guided me many, many times. She is the one who told me to start writing about what I went through with my ex-husband, which started my website, Postcards from a Soul and Her Human, because once I started writing, I was inspired to create a place to post it. And honestly, the initial inspiration was because I got so much help just reading other people's experiences online. That was my intention. I even have a little blurb at the very bottom of my website that I created in the original version of it that said I created this for other people who are on their own journeys, because I gained so much from what they posted. So that was the intention with the website. Initially, I didn't know what it was meant to be. Of course, it had a whole other purpose. But she was the one who said you should write about it. And when I was trying to figure out a way to draw more attention to what I was doing, I asked my daughter what she thought about me creating a video. And she said, Mom, I see you doing a podcast, which was her higher self working through her to guide me. And that's how soulmates work. And you may be talking to somebody, a stranger, and receive inspiration, which is guidance from the higher self of that person who is agreeing to help you on your journey. That's how this all works. So when I said to her, I said, listen, I did this currency exchange research because I was concerned about my retirement being reduced, if I moved to a new country. And I said, and I found out it's 53%. And she looked at me, she goes, more, right? And I said, yeah, how'd you know? She goes, I just knew it. And I said, so what that means is, and I kind of gave her a rough idea of what that would mean in, dollar amounts or dollar bucks. well, that's Australia. I don't know if New Zealand's the same, but that's a Bluey reference, by the way, because I have a granddaughter. Um, she then said to me, Mom, you could go right now. And I knew that that was her higher self working through her to tell me that she had embraced the idea of me going away and leaving her and my granddaughter when we have such a close relationship now. I spend a lot of time with them. So it really served a purpose for me to understand that, and just to go off topic a little bit, I had always been concerned about my daughter accepting the idea that I had to move away from her. But during our time together in these 2 years where I'm needed, we have created this new bond and this new relationship that includes an understanding of our soul's purpose on earth, hers and mine, and the baby. And she now embodies this whole idea. It is not something she has to come to terms with. She blurted out, Mom, you could go right now, which told me what I needed to soothe my heart, because my only concern was that the only person on this earth that I had any concern about how they felt about me leaving was her. And I knew that she was okay with it. So that was a beautiful moment. But back to the original purpose is she said, you can go right now, that you would have what you needed to go. So it really helped me to let go. Well, I really wasn't holding on to anything that I was aware of, but it helped me to embody much more this whole idea of moving. So this was a few weeks ago that happened. Of course, there's no accidents. That took place for a reason. I'm lying in bed yesterday morning, this morning, and this Social Security post entered my mind, and I thought about it, and I suddenly had a realization, or an epiphany, or a revelation, or however you want to put it. And I said out loud, I see it. I see it. I get it. And I said to myself, I said, if I still feel this way later on today, then I'm going to go ahead and file for my Social Security. And what had happened was, within the next minute, and literally you can count 60 seconds, I was already sitting up in my bed saying, I'm doing this. This is not something I have to think about. I don't have to doubt it. This entered my body as an idea for a reason. I saw the post for a reason. I had this research about the currency rate exchange for a reason. It all came to this moment where I realized that because if you know anything about Social Security, and I'll back up just a little bit, if you take it at 62, which is the youngest you can take it, you get an initial rate that stays the same for the rest of your life. Every month that you wait, it goes up just a little bit, depending on your highest income that you made during your working lifetime. So if I wait till I'm 67 years old, it's considered full Social Security, and I'll get the most that I'm able to earn. But I have to wait another 5 years, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to wait the 5 years or not. I have no idea. I don't have enough in my retirement to last the rest of my life. Let me make that clear. But I wasn't in a hurry to draw Social Security because I wasn't guided or inspired to yet. So I was waiting for the inspiration. Well, here it came. As I'm lying there, I realized that if I take the minimum or the initial amount at 62, which I'm 62 right now in a few months. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. And again, it doesn't matter if I'm right or not. It's the inspiration that caused me to take the action. That's all that matters. The outcome is whatever it's meant to be. But what I realized in that moment is that initial payment, once the rate of currency is exchanged to New Zealand, will actually be the amount that I would receive at 67 years old. So although the payment right now that I'm taking in the United States will be the minimum amount that I can get at 62, because of the exchange rate to New Zealand, if I move to New Zealand tomorrow and I'm on Social Security, my payment will automatically increase by 53%. So what that will mean is I will have my full payout at 67 at 62 in New Zealand. I honestly didn't know if I was going to talk about this today, but obviously it came through. But this is another example of the clarity and the inspiration that you receive as you let go of debris. And I physically let go of debris in my house, and I physically transmuted the debris in my body and integrated it as part of my frequency, because the darkness illuminates The darkness contrasts the light. And I've said this before, and I know it's hard to understand, but without the darkness that you go through in our lives, you cannot be brilliant. It's like you can't be a neurosurgeon until you go through 7 years of training, which is life sucking, from what I understand, and residency and all that you have to do to become a neurosurgeon. You can't be this brilliant, skilled doctor until you go through all the training. And it is the same thing in our lifetime. We can't become this brilliant, illuminated being until we go through the darkness that we're meant to experience, the karma that we brought into this lifetime to overcome. So your darkness is not to be feared. Your worst thoughts, your pain, your insecurities, your fears, they're not to be overlooked or buried, because what that does is it just keeps lowering your frequency as you add more weight to your body. The more weight you add emotionally to your body, the lower your frequency goes in order to sustain it. It's like you need a bigger box to put more stuff in. So the bigger that box gets, the heavier it gets, right? That's exactly the same thing in our body. Our body is a vessel. It carries energy. If we bury it in emotional debris, the frequency keeps dropping. And as the frequency lowers, we are drawing in low frequency experiences. This is how energy works. Like energy attracts like energy. So if you are buried in fear and insecurity, and people are literally buried in their homes when you look at hoarders. I've cleaned out many hoarder homes as an estate liquidator. It is a draining experience. And to see this person, if they're still living, which many times they're not, so attached to this stuff that they can barely go on without it, that is the most vivid example of someone who is buried in emotional debris, because they literally bury themselves in stuff. It is reflected outwardly in our lives, just like everything internally is. So just take that to heart and understand that as you clear your body of emotional debris, and I'm saying me, I went through this. I'm not telling you what to do. I am sharing with you wisdom that I gained from this intuitive channel that I was able to clear, and now that I live by. I can take on any challenge. I can fix anything. I can face any reality, because I know I am intuitively equipped to follow my heart and my inner guidance. I don't get tripped up anymore. Do you know the old saying, if you don't believe in anything, you believe everything? It's kind of like that. It's like, but the thing I believe in is my own energetic power. I believe in the source of energy that I am. As a tapestry of this universe, I am but a flicker in the bonfire of life, having an individualized experience in a particular realm called Earth, where I can incarnate in a human form and have all these experiences that elevate my being or allow me to evolve. It's so extraordinary how it all ties together. But emotional weight equals lower frequency. And lower frequency equals negative experiences. The higher your frequency goes, the frequency cannot sustain that baggage, so it drops off. But you can't rise up and drop the baggage. You have to drop the baggage and then you rise up. That's how it works. So I just wanted to talk about those two extraordinary things that have happened. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know for sure that it's New Zealand that I'm going to, but that's not the point. I was guided to draw my Social Security because it's time for me to draw it. It's part of my abundance, and I don't have to hold it off any longer with some idea that I might need more than I'm going to get down the road. I don't have to worry about that. I will always have everything that I need. And all I need to do in every single moment is to follow my inspiration. I don't have to strategize. I don't have to plan. I don't have to know anything. All I have to do is maintain this open channel. And I do that by spending as much time in nature as I can, so I can transmute negative energy out of my body, by resting when my body's tired, by eating when my body is hungry, and by doing what my body tells me to do. And that's called inspired action. And that's the only action that I'll take. Inspired action caused me to leave my business nearly 3 years ago. Inspired action caused me to draw from my retirement so I didn't have to get a job because I was supposed to spend that time with my daughter. These are big things. They're not little things. But I trust that I'm doing what I'm meant to do, that what my soul is here to do, because I have cleared the way for her to speak to me clearly every day. It's so exciting to live this way, and I just wanted to share that with you. And I appreciate you being here with me and following me on this journey and taking it with me. Really, I wasn't sure how this was going to be received, or if I articulated this in a way that would be resonant to you. I hope that I did, but I just want to tell you thank you so much for joining me on this journey, for being present for me here. And if you have any comments or questions, again, this is going to be on YouTube. My YouTube handle is at Postcards from a Soul. That's how you can find me on YouTube. It's Sophia Maya, and the description area will give you any detail that I want to accentuate, and you can also leave a comment. You can contact me there. My website is postcardsfromasoul.com. My podcasting platform is Buzzsprout, which is postcardsfromasoul.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Postcards from a Soul. If you have any questions or would like to reach out, I always appreciate that. But thank you so much for being here with me. It is time for me to go, and I will talk to you again soon.